Hello everyone, welcome to Brief.IL. Our main topic of conversation today is going to be another round of escalation in Iran. But this time, it's only the United States and Iran. Israel is nowhere to be seen, is not involved in this round of escalation. Speaking of Iran, one of the core demands of Iran is that Israel scales back its operations in Lebanon. And that might happen, but not the way Iran wants it. Israel and the Lebanese government, together with the IDF and the Lebanese army, are launching a pilot in which the IDF will withdraw from certain areas in Lebanon and the Lebanese army will take its place, demilitarizing Hezbollah. And lastly, in the US House of Representatives, Representative Messi brought in a resolution to stop $3.3 billion in military finance to Israel. This resolution failed, but more than half of the Democratic leaders voted to approve it, and this should be a stark warning sign for Israel. My name is Ofir Dayan. I'm a researcher here at the INSS focusing on anti-Semitism and delegitimization, and with me in the studio today is Major General in Reserves Tamir Hayman, who was the head of the IDF military intelligence and is today the head of the Institute for National Security Studies. This is Brief.IL. Let's begin. Hi, Tamir.
Hi, Ophir.
So let's start with the most pressing issue of the last several weeks. The war in Iran seems to have renewed. The U.S. is attacking Iran repeatedly, almost every night in the past several weeks. What is the United States trying to achieve in Iran?
Apparently, the United States is trying to force Iran back to the MOU according to the way that the Americans are interpreting the MOU. It has already been said that the MOU is not Memorandum of Understanding, it's a MOMO. It's a Memorandum of Misunderstanding. So each part understand or interpret that differently. Iranians are pretty much convinced that the maritime regime in the Straits of Hormuz should be without any American intervention, and it will be according to the newly established administration that they have established. That means that any ship, vessels that tries to pass, coordinate with this administration of maritime regime, whatever, and should travel through the northern route along the Iranian coast and not
pay?
Not pay. 60 days, according to the MOU, there will not be any payment for the duration of the negotiation for 60 days. After 60 days, there will be a new kind of organization or new kind of regime format that will be consisted of Iran and the Sultani of Oman. Vague. Not sure that everybody understands what that means. I'll state what the Iranians take of that. But moving back to the restrictions, any attempt of vessels crossing through the Omani route, the southern part of the Straits of Hormuz along the Omani coast, and moreover, if it is escorted by U.S. vessels, that is according to the Iranian interpretation, that's a violation of the MOU. But more deep, what the Iranians are trying to achieve is to establish their total victory, according to their narrative, which is based on 4 achievements. 1, stability of the regime. The regime survived and still functioning under Mujtaba leadership. Secondly, the sovereignty over the Straits of Hormuz, which was not there before the war. Third, preserving the nuclear project and insisting on that. And fourth, restriction Israel activities against Hezbollah. And those are the 4 red lines. Right now, we are seeing only one of the 4 executing Straits of Hormuz, and they will insist. They will not let go. They will insist upon that. As for how Iranian interpreted the future, they think that there will be a joint administration that will monitor traveling through the Straits of Hormuz, split between Iran and Oman. And each will pay the price of the toll, and the toll will be separated or divided between Oman and Iran.
So what is the U.S. trying to achieve here?
U.S. is, according to their concept of operation, believe that forcing Iran back to reopening the Straits of Hormuz, it will be achieved through economic pressure by reimposing the blockade, and by destroying the routes that are leading to the main ports of Iran. 90% out of Iran economy is based on the Persian Gulf. Oil export, fertilizer, and most of the imports that comes from Iran comes from those ports. Destroying or cutting them from the mainland, Iran, will create some enduring economic pressure. Even after the Straits of Hormuz will be reopened by lifting the blockade, those railroads that were destroyed and the tunnels and the bridges, all of that is somehow divides Iran from the more economic portal of Iran to the mainland Iran of Tehran. And if added to that is the civilian structure in those portal cities. It's a huge merge of all of the different sections of Iran. Although there is a majority of Persian Iranians, that is, but there you'll find Arabs, Baluchi, Azeri, all of the combination, all of this very complicated structure of the internal demographic of Iran is represented in those four main ports.
But still, this round of escalation is very different than the ones that we have seen in the last month and even last year. Iran is not attacking Israel, and Israel is not attacking in Iran. So I would like to ask you two questions. First of all, why is Iran not attacking Israel? And why is Israel not joining the United States in attacking Iran? I know that some Israeli personnel said that the United States does not want Israel to intervene. And I heard you yesterday say that they might want to Gulf War style coalition with Arab states. So is that anything else?
Well, it seems like it is against the USA interest that Israel will join in. Let's start from that for two reasons. One, controlling the flames. Israel, when it acts extensively. Okay, I won't say it's a rogue actor, but it is a very decisive and aggressive actor that holds in its position a list of targets that it wants to destroy, that is, for time being, if executed, will expand the campaign, and President Trump will lose control. President Trump, I think, right now wants to control the level of flames. And the only measure that can spit it out of control is Israel entering the campaign. You'll end up with something differently. And most of the Israeli targets are regime-affiliated targets, what we call national infrastructure, and based on the northern part of Iran, closer to Israel. Trump wants to contain the campaign in the Gulfs, in the Persian Gulf, in the Straits of Hormuz, and conducting it very, very accurately in order to maintain friction, but in a certain level. As for the chance of Israel as a potential future disruptor of an Arab coalition, that is way in the future. A quick reminder, back in the first Gulf War, Israel was asked politely by United States not to intervene against Iraq.
When it was attacked.
Even when it was attacked, because that will destroy the Arab coalition. The situation is totally different right now. We have the Abraham Accords, etc., etc. But again, facing the fact that Iran considered a joint Arab-US coalition as the worst of all scenarios, not because of the military power that will be executed, but the after-war effect. It will end up like Iraq, and they know that. So Israel, as a potential disruptor of a joint coalition, its way in the future is not what we're seeing right now, but I can see that in possible strikes against main Iranian infrastructure by United States, that is what President Trump calls the plant strikes, Iran will retaliate against a major infrastructure in the Gulf states. That will force the Gulf states to intervene. That may formulate a coalition, and in that case, it's better off for Trump and the new coalition to keep Israel out of that. Iran wants, and that is assumption. It's not based on evidence. Iran prefers to carry low flame, constant conflict with United States for two reasons. Domestically, it is stabilizing the new regime. Nobody really asks questions regarding the executions that the regime is doing right now against protests from January 8th. Nobody asks questions domestically. Why doesn't Mujtaba appear in media? Because if there's a state of war, there's an excuse why he's being kept hidden somewhere. It's very fragile in terms of the stability of the regime that there's no presence of the supreme leaders. It's not the way things are done in Iran. And moreover, it gives some form of an answer to the question, why are the situation in Iran is so dire in terms of economics, what will happen with us? We are in a state of war. So maintaining some level of war without escalating to a full-scale war against the United States probably serves the interest of Mujtaba Khamenei for time being. Secondly, the fact that it is restricted to Hormuz, it's an American ticket. Who violates the MOU in the Hormuz? America violated it, according to the Iran. So the retaliation is restricted to American infrastructure, not Arab infrastructure. There might be spillover that will escalate the situation, but they want to keep it very accurate. As long as it is contained to the Gulf, to the Hormuz war, let's call it the Hormuz war, there is strict rules of engagement. They are retaliating against American presence in all of the Gulf states. United States is striking in a context to the Gulf. UAVs, ports, connecting routes, blockade. It seems like there's some form of an agreement about what are the boundaries of this campaign.
So in this Hormuz war, one key Israeli national interest is not being addressed, which is the Iranian nuclear program. It's completely sidelined by both the United States and obviously Iran that has no real interest to talk about this. How should Israel respond to this development? Because obviously Israel wanted this war in order to address the Iranian nuclear issue.
Well, Israel is not on a map. Israel is not on the table, sorry. Nobody really speaks about the nuclear. I've just recently met, let's call them counterparts from the Gulf. And they've issued the idea that while we are constantly discussing and looking about the Straits of Hormuz, nobody asks hard questions, difficult questions of what happens in the nuclear. Iranians are clever to contain the conflict on the Straits of Hormuz while they are doing some activities, let's call it that, in the right. Nuclear. We have seen proofs that there is engineer working in the Pickaxe Mountain. Pickaxe Mountain is probably going to be the new enrichment site. It is deeply buried underground. According to the Iranian perception, it is beyond the capability of MOP bombs, the bombs that the B-2 are dropped on Fordo. It's beyond it. So they consider it as an area that is untouchable and unbreachable, and that's very dangerous. We don't know what happens in the rest of the nuclear site. There's no inspections by the International Agency for Atomic Energy. Nobody knows exactly, except for intelligence side, that is. But if the main lessons that Mujtaba learned from the war is that they should aspire or achieve nuclear capabilities in order to deter United States from striking, like the North Korean type model, we should be very worried about what happens while we are playing in the Straits of Hormuz, something else happening. Israel should raise this awareness and create an independence capability to strike and to eliminate the nuclear project. This will take time. But if we get the information that there is some form of advancement in there, I would recommend to strike without early approval of the United States, because this is this is a red line by Israel.
I agree. And as we said, unlike other times, Israel is not a part of this operation. And in the previous two operations, the narratives that we heard a lot is that Israel is dragging the United States, quote unquote, into this war, a war that the United States has no interest in fighting. And I have to say that now that Israel is no longer a part of this war, these narratives are minimized because there's no one to blame. President Trump decided all on his own to go to a round of escalation against Iran. What do you think the fact that Israel is not taking a part? Do you think it can help us in the international stage? Do you think it does not make a difference?
A small correction. President Trump not started this renewed operation. Iran started it.
Right.
Iran dragged United States by striking vessels.
But nobody's going to blame them.
But we should, I think, raise raise awareness of the evidential truth. Israel is not a part of this war. Iran struck unprovoked the Straits of Hormuz because they interpreted the MOU in their way of interpretation, and for that case, it may single or give evidence to what really is the problem here of all of that. Because before there was this argument that Israel, for its own interest, are dragging the United States. Israel is not a part right now of this war. But we don't hear many voices claiming, here's your proof that it's not Israel that dragged the United States. It's the problem of Iran. Iran is the problem that should have been dealt, and we are now seeing a perfect evidence what is really going on in Iran and who is really the disruptor of the Middle East. But unfortunately, you won't hear these voices, and you won't hear any kind of exonerations, let's say, of Israel's blame in the past.
100%. And earlier you said that one of the key goals that Iran has is to make sure that Israel is not operating freely against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And that might happen, but not the way Iran wanted to. We are launching a pilot in which the IDF will withdraw from certain territories it controls inside Lebanon, and the Lebanese army will step in and demilitarize Hezbollah. There is a debate on whether the IDF will go back to check after or not. But how do you see this pilot? Does it serve the Israeli national security interests? How should it work?
That's very interesting, the issue that you raised. Before giving the details of this pilot, there is a potential disruptive capability of Iran. If Iran wants to disrupt the direct negotiation between Israel and Lebanon, they can easily disrupt it by ordering Hezbollah to shoot 2 rockets towards Metula. 2 missiles or rockets towards Metula. Israel will retaliate intensively, extensively.
And rightfully so.
Even into Beirut. And that will lead Iran, as promised, as they strictly gave the red line, any strike of Israel in Beirut will lead to Iranians' retaliation from Iran's soil to the northern part of Israel. So that gives them a leverage, very fragile leverage. Secondly, we are not dealing with an army, regular army. We are dealing with terrorists, with Hezbollah organization. It's not fully controlled, okay? There can be misunderstanding. Someone takes the authority. Someone somehow initiates something. There is rogue elements inside. Remember the rogue elements of Hamas? There will be. We might hear about
lightning striking the launchers in Gaza.
Yes, rogue element in Hezbollah who launched accidentally 2 rockets. What Israel is going to do? Will it contain it, retaliate? I think Israel will contain it. So there's a huge disruptive element that may be introduced in order to block what is really against the Iranians and Hezbollah interest. Form the negotiation between Israel and Lebanon is a form of normalization. It's something that really totally contradicts the vision of Iran and Hezbollah about Lebanon. Now for the pilots, we are talking about 2 villages. One, northern to the Litani River. It's western to the Beaufort fort. It's a small country called Zauta al-Sharqiya. And it is under the control of Israel right now. This is half of the pilot. Israel concluded its operation in this village, and it has no tactical advantage regarding defending the border of Israel. It's far in the west from Metula. That's one village. Israel should withdraw its forces.
That is a Shia village?
Yes. Israel withdraw its forces, and Lebanese armed forces entering and taking control, making sure that Hezbollah will not reappear, whatever, and maybe later on construction will begin. Then the second village is a village southern to the Litani River, beyond the yellow line. That is, it's not under any occupation right now. Israel is not there. That's the second option. That we will see what happens when Lebanon armed forces entering villages that was not fully cleared by the IDF. Mm-hmm. Those 2 pilots, 2 models of operation. One is relevant to all of the area southern to the yellow line, and the second is very relevant for all the area southern to the Litani River and northern to the yellow line. It is an area that is not cleared. As far as we can tell, Hezbollah is not actively operating there, and we are trying to give Lebanese armed forces the chance to enter those villages. Tyre is one of them. Tyre is the largest city in that area. So entering Tyre and the rest of the villages will be concluded from this pilot. So this is why we are conducting a test plan with a trust-building measure with the Lebanese armed forces and the Lebanese government, because as you probably know, there's zero trust right now, not on the will, but on their capability.
On the Israeli side.
From the Israeli side. Israelis are reluctant on trusting the Lebanese armed forces to fully implement or fully disarm Hezbollah, because they cannot and they won't do that.
And why do the Lebanese mistrust us?
The Lebanese has this concept that Israel is not going to withdraw from Lebanon, in whatever the concept, but the circumstances will be, because Israel wants to create a buffer zone to expand its borders in order to protect better the villages on the northern side of Israel. And it's not really detached from reality. There were ministers, there were organizations that are promoting this idea, even promoting the idea of building settlements in Lebanon.
We've seen this week people spending 24 hours beyond the border.
Yeah, it's in Syria also. So there is that's the background of the mistrust of the Lebanese government regarding Israel's interest in that.
So with that mistrust and with inability to actually address Hezbollah, the pilot starts. And let's say in a very good, bright future, this pilot succeeds. Does that mean that Israel managed to detach the Lebanese front from the Iranian front? And what does it mean for Israel's strategic future? Because I do think that this is a strategic move and not just, a tactical move against Hezbollah.
If succeeds, it is a great achievement of the Lebanese-Israeli direct negotiation, because we are building trust that will enable us to slowly but surely proceed the strategic vision of withdrawing for disarmament. So we now know that withdrawing, we are transferring the area to an entity that can do something, has some capabilities, and now we can move from the idea, from the principles to execution. And the execution will be gradual. We must take into consideration the Israel election. I don't see any dramatic withdrawals from this yellow line before the Israeli election. Because if for internal political reasons it will be considered as weakness, as debatable, as something that we will probably not go with the Likud and Benjamin Netanyahu messaging about what we have achieved. Withdrawing right now, I think after the first withdrawal we will see is after the election. Where will we withdraw to? What will be the next line of withdrawal? And what will be the gradual procedure that will ensure that we are withdrawing for disarmament and establishing some form of a diplomatic arrangement with the Lebanese government? It's still yet to be decided, and I think it will be mostly the next government mission to take the military accomplishment, which is really meaningful in Lebanon, and to transfer it into a diplomatical solution.
Let's hope that no matter who is in the next government, they'll do it. Surveys say that more than 70% of Israelis wish for a diplomatic agreement with Lebanon. So hopefully that would be the direction. But I want to turn now to a whole different arena, which in my view is no less dangerous to Israeli national security than Iran and Lebanon. And I'm speaking about the political or image arena in terms of Israel and the delegitimization of Israel. And we have seen in Congress a vote about actually came from a Republican member of Congress who is in a bit of a dispute with President Trump. And Congressman Massey offered to cut all $3.3 billion in U.S. financing to Israel. And I would like to hear from you before we get to what happened in this vote, if it was accepted, what would be the implication of such a decision?
First of all, it's unfair. It's not fair to cut budget while we are in the framework of the MOU, of the former agreement. We are counting on that. It is
which is until 2028.
Yeah,
right?
We still have 2 years and a year and a half. But just to cut that after we have already planned on that money. And it is a part of our fourth generation capabilities. To give you an example that is crucial, interceptor of Iron Dome and capabilities and Arrow 3 capabilities, all part of our, not all, but part of our defense, air defense system is invested in that money, or basing or relying on the fact that this money was already agreed upon and it is now channeled. It's not something that we can suddenly cancel. We will probably need to understand what that means for the next MOU, but it's not fair between friends or business partners to cut unilaterally in the middle of the time frame. Secondly, I think that's a demonstration that signals the problems that we are facing with the United States. To do that during wartime, when everybody knows that during this war we need to recover some of our capabilities that were used during this campaign. Highly sensitive to do that, and signals to us something very negative about how Israel is being understood, or how Israel is being portrayed, and even I would dare to imagine. I would not dare to imagine 10 years ago that during Israeli war, whatever we were in Intifada, whatever, suddenly that would be decided by or been approved by such large portion of the Congress. So we are. It's another indication that we are in a very, very dangerous route in terms of Israel-U.S. relationship in the long term.
I would say that not even in peacetime someone would offer something like that. But I wasn't planning to ask that, but you said something that I found very interesting. You've said that this is not something we do between friends or business partners. And I think that's actually the conversation that we need to have when we are approaching the next MOU. Are we friends or are we business partners? Because these are two different approaches. If you're a friend, they are, obligated or want to assist you. If you're a business partner, and like was implied by Americans and Israelis alike in the recent month, Israel will purchase American military weapons, supplies in a regular price, like every other business partner. So what do you think the model for the next MOU should be? We'll discuss what the United States think, but on our side, what should we aspire for?
If there's something I've learned through my experience in the high rank of the Israel IDF General Staff and dealing with the very subtle line between politics and military, that there are no friends in geopolitics. There are no friends. There's only interests, and in the some of the interests are based on joint values. That there, for example, if you are executing or being or the representing the values of a certain state, let's say America and the Middle East, preserving those values, those American values in the Middle East of democracy, liberalization, and free market, etc., that's an interest of United States. So interests are based on joint values, but basically it's all interest. It's not, we have this image that there are love and affection, that's really for romantic movies, that's not happening in geopolitics. Values, okay, there are values, very important, but values serve geopolitical interest. And the business model, that's something that is below the level of the geopolitics, but it runs the world in terms of trade. So we now need to manage all of those different elements of connectivity with the United States, and we should, like in judo wrestling, execute the energy in order to channel it for your own interest and not work against the wind, not against the current. And the currently, it seems like America is very much business-oriented, wants to establish the connections between Israel and U.S. with joint interests. And those are the two major issues that we should take in consideration when we are reaching the next MOU. Our vision is maintaining Israel-U.S. relationship for the long term, because we have already betted on United States. We cannot hedge, we cannot divert or create some form of diversification. Mainly the diversification is important, and there are few diversifications that we can think about. But roughly, the bigger picture is that we are connected to the United States. So how can we channel the future MOU based on business connections and trade, joint interest, and a vision of enforcing those special relationships? That's the component of the next MOU.
So going back to that vote, the good news is that the vote failed 314 to 104. But the bad news, and they're very, very bad in my opinion at least, that more than half of the Democratic Congress people voted to seize the aid or just did not oppose it. Not all of them voted to stop it. Some of them just didn't oppose. What do you think that means for Israel, and how should Israel act in the face of this, what I perceive as a threat, both in terms of what we should do and how we should address the Democratic Party going on?
Well, as we say in Hebrew, frustration is not is not the strategy. It's not a work plan. We must not be led by frustration, humiliation, and a sense of abandonedness by the Democratic Party. It's not personal. It's all based on political interest and the trend that Democratic Party sense from the electorate. We should work with the Democratic Party. We should not abandon and bet on some internal American politics in order to promote Israel interests. No, Israel is valuable for America. And I think the Democratic Party consider America as the number 1, 2, 3 of their missions, that they want America to be strong, to be flourishing, to be a beacon of the values of the world. I don't think the Democratic thinks differently. Yes, there are trends that are highly, I say, insulting. When I hear few of the Democratic representative in the House, how they speak about Israel, I am furious, frustrated, amazed about how ignorant they are about the basic facts of Israel and what it's all about. But the plan of action is not to abandon it and search for a safe haven in the...
Which frankly was the game plan for many, many years.
Exactly. And that was a mistake. I would say, I would go further on. The more radical aspect or radical and dangerous trend in the Democratic Party are the progressive rising trends. We have abandoned the progressive totally. And that was also a mistake. And this is way harder than the rest of the more elderly, conservative Democrats, they call it. The progressive movement, we have totally ignored it and labeled it as an adversaries to Israel. And that was a mistake. How can we do that? I think it goes back to values are the interest of Israel-US relationship. And pretending the better face of Israel in terms of values will be something that will be acknowledged by the even more radical parts of the Democratic Party. Secondly, work all across the political map and try to reestablish our position. We have a giant problem that needs to be addressed. And it is the Palestinian-Israeli issue. And as long as we will kind of kick that can down the road, hope that it will be ignored, because nobody, it's not interesting enough. Nobody it's like someone said, it's a dead water. It's not going to lead to anything, but that's a problem. We should somehow reestablish a vision, initiative. Let the other part be the refusing side. Let us present something in terms of that aspect, because ignoring it, because it's very, very fragile in terms of internal Israel politics, is worsening the situation in the left side of this political spectrum in the United States, but also serves the narrative of anti-Semitism, of racism, of our superiority, Israeli Jews as white, suppressions, and etc. And that's not in our favor.
No, I totally agree with that. Just with two caveats. First of all, I'm not sure the democratic liberal values are at the top of the agenda for some of the progressives who are also becoming more anti-American. But I think with the more moderate progressives, that could definitely work. But I want to even go further. There are even democratic leaders who voted against, or the half of the Democratic representatives who voted against cutting this aid. Let's take, for example, a big friend of Israel, Hakeem Jeffries, who voted against cutting this aid. But after the vote, he went out and said, that the American policy towards the Israeli government and Israel itself should change in the future. So I want to end this podcast in asking your opinion about something, because I do think that the aid is starting to be played as, a carrot and a stick towards Israel. So we can just utilize it by both friends and foes of Israel in the United States to make you do things or not do other things. So I want to end this podcast by asking you, how can Israel maintain its independence and its decision-making in face of such a huge leverage being held above its head?
Like it is done before, mainly Israel is a very unique player in the international security environment. It has a very independent way of conducting the threats, and struggled, and even I think in terms of nuclear strikes in 2006 and in 81, in both cases, Israel worked totally against the American president, who prohibited it, or who thought that it was a terrible mistake to conduct that. And Israel done it, although threatening direct confrontation with the President of the United States. That is ours. We have conducted that along the years, and it was accepted. But it's true. Aid comes with restrictions. And now in the Institute, we are following a very interesting case study of the Ukrainian tipping point of February 25. It seems like after the event when Zelensky was humiliated in the White House, the United States blocked all aid to Ukraine for a period of 3 months. Now we have this perspective of observing what happened in the war since that tipping point. And it seems like all of the categories you are measuring, you see a huge rise in the Ukraine efficiency, because the restrictions were lifted. For example, Ukraine were able to strike logistics convoy inside Russian territory, which was against the restrictions back then. Could strike power plants, Moscow, huge infrastructure, and develop internal huge UAV capabilities, really independent. It was, of course, backed by European countries, of course. European helped them a lot. But it's a very curious case study. Israel is totally different than Ukraine. Ukraine is a huge country, a huge industrial hub for military industry before, in the area of Soviet Union, tanks, all of them advanced military capabilities of the Soviet Union. Most of them were manufactured in Ukraine. So Ukraine is a different story from Israel. But that's something we need to explore and to try to learn something from the Ukrainians facing the challenges we are seeing right now.
So we don't want to be there, but if we're there, we need to learn from others how they dealt with it.
Exactly, and we saw that in the UAVs. Sometimes arrogancy and the sense of superiority restricts your ability to learn, and we should learn more from the Ukraine-Russia war, not just in terms of how to defend from attack drones and FPVs, but more in the strategic level of geopolitics, connectivity with Europe, connection with the United States in a very changing world order. I think we have lost really our attention to that aspect, and now the Institute is now returning back to explore and to see what we can extract as lessons learned from Israel.
So that's a good note to end it. And for our audience, I'm sure you'll be interested in this piece when it comes out. Thank you, Tamir.
Thank you very much.